Hello, my friends. Well, today's a little bit of a different one. Instead of watching me talk on camera the whole time, I'm so excited to have my friend Mike here to speak with you about messaging. So Mike and I actually connected through a common LinkedIn group. And what drew me to him was that we actually have a pretty common history, both 2 decades in this big advertising world, me in film, him in advertising and marketing. And so I'm just really excited to bring him to this interview and to have him share his wisdom around messaging for small business, which I think is such a common roadblock for many business owners. So, Mike shows business owners how to talk about themselves by helping them with clear messaging that aligns with the perspective of their audience. To stand out, you have to be first, best, or different. And with over 2 decades of advertising and marketing experience, working with brands like Transformers, Tonka Trucks, Jurassic World, and Hasbro, he provides an innovative approach to connect, to create your elevator pitch and create a message that's different, memorable, and most importantly, connects with your audience. So thank you so much, Mike, for being here.
I mean, I don't think anybody's ever introduced me so wonderfully before. I'm flattered. Thank you very much. I'm thrilled that you agreed to have me on, and I'm looking forward to talking about a lot of stuff that's definitely important to small businesses. Is how to position yourself, how to talk about yourself, because you're worried about so many different things. So that's what we'll accomplish today, and hopefully it'll be some useful advice for your audience. But yeah, I'm so happy to be here and kind of talk about what I do, because I like to think of it as a unique approach to the challenges that every business has.
Yeah, absolutely. I think messaging is probably one of the trickiest things because as business owners, we're saturated in our own world, in our own lexicon, in our own systems and belief systems. So it's really hard to switch gears and think from the perspective of our audience. So, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes that business owners tend to make when it comes to this messaging aspect?
Well, I'll tell you from personal experience. So my business is a whopping 2.5 years old, but the number one challenge that any small business, it's actually twofold. One is sort of, call it internal, where you have 100% of an idea that you want to share and a passion for this that you want to share with people in the form of a business, which is amazing. But when it's your business, you have to figure out everything that goes with it: email address, website, how I'm going to market myself, how I'm going to sell myself. I need to track customers. I need to do the work on top of all that. And what ends up happening is you look to best practices. And best practices is my favorite term, because that's best practices for business, for universal application of you should be doing this, 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 and this. And invariably, people look at that as, I need a Facebook page and I need to advertise and I need to be on LinkedIn and I need to do all of these different things. And what about my mailing list? And how am I going to send out to more? And it becomes this constant rotation of all these things to do. And you're good at one of them. What got you into business in the first place? So you're dealing with a lot of stuff in your head. There's a lot of things on your plate. Ultimately, what you need is focus, and you need to know who you're talking to and how to speak to them. You ultimately need to learn how to talk about yourself to your audience. And it sounds rudimentary, but I needed to get help doing it for my business. I had to hire somebody to do it for me because I couldn't say what I say now about my business 6 months ago. It wasn't until I worked with a brilliant woman who focuses on copy design on web pages. She brought it out of me. But my point is, I was worried about all those things and dealing with all those things. And what I immediately started doing was what everybody else told me to do, or what was shown as best practices within that business type. So that becomes really cloudy, and it becomes forest for the trees, if you will. You're running and running, trying to get past the next tree, trying to see what's around the next corner, just doing all of these to-dos. Now, what if I told you that your business and how you message it is not unlike writing a resume, where you spend a lot of time writing down all your accomplishments, where you've been, what your role was, how long you were there. You have other people read it, you take classes for it, you make your resume look beautiful. But the truth is, an employer only looks at a resume for 7 to 9 seconds, which means by definition, all they're going to see is the sentence at the top. No matter how much flourish you put on it, it doesn't matter. If they don't connect to that first sentence, that first 7 seconds, they don't read on. Now apply that philosophy to your business. You could have the greatest offering in the world, the greatest service, the greatest product, anything. You could get people to Mars for under $1,000. But if you don't know how to talk to them about it, they're never going to engage with it the right way. 100% of what's important to us as business owners, 3% of that maybe is important to our audience, our customer, when we need to grab their attention. And the easiest thing to do as a litmus test is search a type of business and go through the first 3 search results and see which one resonates with you. See if there's any differentiation from one to the next, or see if they did a good job of grabbing your attention. I see that many businesses end up talking about what's important to them and presenting themselves in that way. So in my time I was at Hasbro on the global brand organization for 6 years, and we'd see ad agencies come in responding to an RFP that we sent them. And 3 of them would come in, and the first things out of their mouth are, we're an ad agency, here's work we've done, here's awards we've won, here's where all our offices are. And at that point, I'm immediately thinking to myself as the audience, we invited you here because you're an ad agency. Do you think you need to lead with that as your first introduction to us? Well, it's not helping us. We sent you exactly what our challenge is. The 4th agency comes in and says, here's your challenge. Here's our unique process for solving it. Here's businesses that we've worked with to validate our process, successful campaigns. And you just think through the logic of that, which one would you be attracted to as the audience in the moment, or even hearing it secondhand from me? It seems really obvious, but the whole reason is because they connected with us up front, or we connected with them up front by focusing on their challenge and not that we're an ad agency. All that comes later.
That makes so much sense. And I think it's similar to storytelling, where business owners will often share stories about themselves, but we always have to keep in mind that, yes, you can be the vessel of the story, but ultimately the story needs to reflect the challenges, the dreams, the aspirations of your audience. Otherwise, it just doesn't land. So I guess
you can't connect with the audience. They go into this binary mode of either paying attention or not paying attention. They're not a hard thing to understand. They're either watching you and listening and absorbing, or they're checking their phone, sending an email, and think they already got the message.
Right.
How do you combat that, right? Even on a Google search, you need to be able to combat that off and on aspect of an audience. How do you switch them on for your message?
So I think you touched on it there with the last example, but then how do you capture your audience's attention? What are the key tenets or concepts that business owners need to kind of hit right away off the front, just like a really clear headline would?
Yeah, sure. So we're starting, you said it at the intro, which again was awesome. First, best, or different. It's a simple philosophy that I have to abide by when I'm working with anybody, because I know first and best aren't an option. And if they're first or best, either I'm going to get rich with them. If they're first or best, they're not going to hire somebody like me, because where I focus on is different. Everybody has the opportunity to come across in their audience's eyes as different. So what I do is work with businesses to show them the most important thing is to have one message. I hear a lot about, I need a social media strategy. I need an email marketing strategy, a web, whatever. Those aren't strategies. Those are boats that ship your message across the waterway, and that's it. To
I've
me,
never heard that analogy, but I love it.
To me, it has a lot more to do with what grabs their attention, informs where you're going to find them, where you're going to put that message that's going to grab their attention. And then if you have that message, no matter what boat it's on, the message looks identical. And those boats could be, to stay with the parlance, it could be your Facebook page or Instagram page. It could be your website. It could be in your sales pitch, and it could be how you talk. If somebody says, what do you do? It should never be different. None of those touch points should ever be different with what you do and how you talk about it. The services you provide are the next thing down in their mind. They're looking to connect with what you do on a much higher level in terms of first communication. So trying to explain to them all the services you provide is getting ahead of the ball. You don't need to worry about that yet. What you need to worry about is maintaining one message across every vehicle for your message. And if that comes across, you start to get known as that. Okay. I make sure the first words out of my mouth are, I show businesses how to talk about themselves. That's the first thing I say. And I'll explain why. The importance of being able to position your business and capture someone's attention. If you think about the concept of the elevator pitch, which I found out is a very American expression, by the way, it doesn't exist in the UK. I couldn't even get away with lift pitch. Didn't work. But that idea of telling somebody in 10 seconds what you do. The challenge with that is in 10 seconds, you got to fit a lot in there, and you're going to give away video develop or video creation and production and all of those things. For me, for instance, I would end up saying I'm a marketing and communications consultant. And whoever my audience is, no matter what comes out next, they've already assigned value to that. Okay. If you told me you're a video producer, I've already assigned value to that. But if I start off with something that's going to create intrigue for them and make them say, give me a little more information, that's where the connection is made. How you create that intrigue so you can get them to the next level. So the way I do this is that 10 seconds is not a realistic idea of an elevator pitch. My concept is how high up the elevator they will go with you listening to your story. And it essentially is 5 floors, the way I talk about it with my clients. The first floor, when they get on and they're deciding what button to push, that's intrigue. How do you get them to hit the penthouse floor or the highest floor because you want their attention? And 10 seconds just isn't enough. This isn't speed networking. This is you meet someone and you're sharing your passion, what you started a business for. So the first floor is intrigue. That's why I say I show businesses how to talk about themselves. You can't assign value to that yet. It could be almost anything. It forces you to say, tell me more. The second floor is who I help, not what I do. It's the problem I solve. The third floor is how I solve it. I give businesses their audience's perspective and show them how to craft their message in a way that's going to hold on to their audience in the right order, the right timing, so you have them all the way through the cycle. And then the fourth floor is how I do it. And the fifth floor is call to action, get in touch, however that's going to look. But I focused on that because I know how an audience thinks. And especially in the business world, this is something important that my father taught me. There's no business without show business, meaning everybody in business is playing a role, okay? Whether we want to be or not, we're on a stage. We don't use words like ideate or synergy outside of work. I wouldn't say to you, hey, Emmy, what are your KPIs this weekend? I'd say, what are you up to this weekend? What are you doing? We don't talk that way in real life. And all of the things in business sort of get process oriented. You have to do this, you have to do that. The key, though, is for anybody to notice it, it has to be sent out the door with the right intent and talking to the right person. And it doesn't matter what kind of fancy words you're using or anything. If it's not clear on the end, what difference does it make? So I help businesses get crystal clear and be able to tell the same story about what they do in the right progress of information. And that helps them to form that better connection, get them to where they want to go. You don't start with services. It's, services and cost, how much it's going to cost. That comes later after you talk about the benefits and why they need it. So looking at everything like that, it streamlines their communication, it gets their audience focused, and it keeps them moving in the direction they want to go, doing the things that are best for them, not what everybody says you should be doing if you're starting a business.
That makes so much sense. And I just wanted to recap there when you said like highest level. To me, it sounds like that you have to be speaking in a colloquial way, just like how you would speak to your friends or, whomever. Try and infuse your phrases with regular language and not like marketing lexicon or your nichecon that becomes really kind of complex, or people just don't even understand what it means in the first place.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with cutting to the chase for the audience, but in the order they need to hear it. So let me use an example of a frequently asked questions page on a website. A good one is designed where it's a funnel of information from most general to most specific. And some people set it up like alphabetical order, no idea why, because that's not how a consumer or customer would go through it, okay? But think about, let's use a public relations agency as an example. A public relations agency exists for a reason. That reason is businesses can't write about themselves. And the reason they can't do that is the same reason that if I asked you to write something glowing about yourself, you'd have a really hard time doing it. It is hard to get what's inside out without being self-reflective. And that happens with businesses too. So they get a PR agency so somebody can tell their story in the right words, okay? Now, if you were to go to 3 or 4 PR agency websites, and I just did this exercise with someone 3 months ago. She runs a PR agency, and we were looking at her website compared to 3 others. And all 4 of them said, we're a PR agency, we'll get your word out. From a consumer first, customer audience first engagement perspective, that's what I took away from however crafty they wanted to get with their message. It said, we're this agency that does this. But in talking with Betty about her agency, I asked her how she started it. That's what I wanted to know. What got her into PR and writing? And in about 10 minutes of coffee, it came out that she was really good at helping like her floor mates in college get out of writer's block. When somebody got in a jam, they would come to her and she'd be, you could say this, this, and this, and it was like nothing. She could pick the words out that were needed. So in talking about that, we said, we basically scripted what her headline of her website should be to convey her business and how to differentiate herself from we're a PR agency. Now it says, every business gets writer's block. We'll help you find the right words. First thing you read on her site does not say we're a PR agency. And I'll tell you exactly why. There's not one person in the world who's going to randomly stumble on a public relations website. They're going there with 100% intent of finding a public relations website. This is not a happenstance that comes up on Google search algorithms. It's a business to business search. They're looking for something specific. To tell them they're an ad agency doesn't make sense, but to align with exactly what's going through their head at the time. I can't do this. I can't write about myself. We'll help you find those words. Done. You've got them right in their need state, right what they need to see. And it differentiates you from the other 3 that say, we're a PR agency.
That makes so much sense. And especially really considering if somebody's going to a PR agency website, they're potentially looking at other PR agencies side by side. So you really need to do something to stand out. So
yeah, think about a book. You're picking out a book at a bookstore. You're choosing between 3, say, spy novels, espionage novels. What are you going to do to decide which one you want? You're not going to read the first sentence because it won't help. And you don't have time to read all 3 books to decide because that would be pointless. You're going to read the blurb. You're going to read that little 2-paragraph explanation of what those 350 pages holds. And the one that grips you, that connects with you, catches your attention, you're taking that one. And it's based on 2 paragraphs that sums up 350 pages of what somebody put their heart and soul into.
Yeah. Or if you're a weirdo like me, you'll just flip to the last chapter and read a few of the pages there too. Sometimes the ending can give away how good the book is.
And then he dies. Well, I guess I don't have to read this.
So I'm curious, because we both come from a background, working with big brands, and in the film industry, I definitely know things that small businesses need to do differently from Hollywood and big brands. And there are also things that big brands do really well that online marketing can really learn a thing or 2 from. In my niche, especially when it comes to launching, I don't know where this idea came from years ago. When we launch an offer, we keep it secret until the very last day, and then we do the grand reveal. And it's kind of hard for a business owner because then you're kind of hang on to the secret this whole time, and there's so much tension and anticipation that you've got to sell spots on your very last day. Whereas big brands, they start to release the movie. Hey, Tom Cruise is coming up in this movie. They give it away right from the beginning.
Mhm.
So in your perspective, what is something that big brands do really well that small businesses can learn from, or something that small businesses really need to do differently from them?
I'm actually going to speak to it as more of a cautionary tale for small businesses. And I'll tell you why. You said it, Hollywood can get whoever they want, right? Big brands, when they hire an ad agency, for instance, they don't want to work with the little boutique shop. They want to work with who Nike works with or who Coca-Cola works with, because there's a sense of, we can get that because we're the richest guys in the neighborhood. And unfortunately, big brands like that come with a lot of overhead, a lot of processes, a lot of departments, a lot of, we need strategies for this and meetings on this. And it tends to get really disjointed, meaning you lose track of who the audience really is and how they think when you're stuck in a mechanism. Okay. So I think the biggest, and I'll give you a quick example of this. We were trying to figure out the SEO terminology to use to sell the new Elmo, feature Elmo. So this one was like Sing With Me Elmo, but Tickle Me Elmo, whatever. We're trying to figure, this is how ridiculous the conversations and granular they would get, but we're trying to figure out what the right SEO strategy is for Sing With Me Elmo. And you have probably 10 people in the room who are all college educated, have been in marketing for years and pouring over this data and stuff. And it took a 22-year-old in the corner to say, hang on a second. He's like a design intern. Hang on a second. Sesame Street's like a babysitting device. Mom puts the kid there. The kid's like, what, 2? Puts the kid there so she could get on with the day and get stuff done. So if that kid comes into the kitchen and pulls on her leg, he isn't saying anything like Sing With Me Elmo, right? I mean, he's going to be like, Mom, I want Elmo, I want Elmo. So mom's going to be like, he saw something new with Elmo. Shouldn't the search term be new Elmo? And you've got your 12 professionals sitting there going, damn it, you're absolutely right. So my point being, best practices from big brands can often be driven by the fact that they can do it, or it gets distilled to where they can't see the forest for the trees. And they spend so much time trying to think about what we need to say to the audience and not what the audience needs to take away. So you'll see a lot of, they're spending money on media and events and all of these different things to drive, whether it's a collector's convention at Comic-Con that I would go to for Hasbro, or it was like a YouTuber connect, whatever the case was, how we positioned ourselves to those audiences was imperative. And a big brand just doesn't move that fast and think like a small company. So when you're looking at what big brands do, a lot of times they're actually reacting to what the smaller brands do. They are adapting it. So let's say a small brand comes up with the idea to work with a small influencer to launch something. Oh, well, we have all this money, so we're going to get influencers for every brand, and we're just going to drive it that way, and that's our new media platform. Then people who are aspiring to be those brands say, oh, that's what we should be doing. When in reality, those big brands, what you should look at is challenger brands, the brands who want to knock the big ones off because they're more innovative, they're scrappier, they have smaller budgets, and they're much more apt to be doing the things that a small business should be doing. The big guys can just spend money to keep everybody else away, right? That's how media spend works. So best practice has nothing to do with it. It's a metric on a media plan. But when it's a small business and you need to propagate your message, you have to get much more creative than that. So the best thing I could say is focus on 3 things and no more than 3 things for your business that are going to speak directly to your consumer where they are. It's like if you're a hot dog vendor, you want to sell hot dogs at Fenway Park or at a pro ballpark because people are ordering hot dogs. So look for the 3 things that are going to drive most specifically to your audience. And as you keep doing that, those stepping stones that get closer to where you want to be start to come closer together. And they start to be higher, meaning your curve goes like this of who you are and what you do and how your message is propagated. So best advice I could give, make your world smaller. Think about the 3 things that you could do and no more than 3 that are going to prove driving your business forward, and don't worry about what the big guys are saying. I'll close with this. I spoke to a security guard at Hasbro. He reached out because during obviously not a big demand for security during the pandemic. he started restoring furniture. He'd buy furniture that he saw and he'd restore it. And he's really good at it. He showed me side by side. And then he says, so I'm starting a website and I'm going to go on Instagram and I'm going to do all these things. And I said, wait a second, Darren, slow down. Have you tried putting it out in front of your house with a sign, and what it looked like before is a picture on top of it, and see if anybody will stop and buy it? He goes, no. Said, start there. There's, oh boy, sorry, the dog's interrupting. Go. But the point was, start there. Start with what you have control over and talk to the people who are going to buy furniture. Instagram's rife with people who have no interest in furniture. Don't start in that giant pond. Start right in your backyard. Best thing you could do is a small business.
That is so, so helpful. I think it's so natural to feel overwhelmed. And I mean, that brings us back full circle to the beginning of this conversation. We think we need to do all these things. And really, it's about focusing down on to the biggest meter moving actions and just focusing on that. And I think, and I know growth naturally comes from there. So thank you so much for this. If people want help with their messaging and they want to get in touch with you, where should they go?
Go to verretandassociates.com. It's V-E-R-R-E-T. It's spelled like Verret, pronounced like Corvette, I guess. I don't know. But verretandassociates.com, and you can book time directly there. And you can find me on LinkedIn there if you ever want to just have a conversation. I have just up on my site, click here for a free 30-minute call, because I love talking to people about their business, especially the small businesses who are trying to figure it out and trying to take cues from the big guys. I love helping them get it straightened and really focused, and just get that message clear for who their audience is.
I love that. And we'll be sure to leave the links in the description box as well.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is wonderful. And once again, I'd just like to say your smile lights up the room. My room.
I got good lighting.
There you go.
Thank you, Mike. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Yeah.